Just give it a moment. All right, 2 minute call of peace. In noon times. This is BIAE Interpretations Book 2 Part 8. And we are going to jump right into this as soon as everybody introduce themselves. I'm your host, Marshall Tarkina Onanuku, and that's my introduction. Go ahead, Nebu. Can't hear you.
Do you have
Yeah,
me?
we got you. Go ahead, we got
You got me
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. True peace. I'm Nibu Riuno Nunuku. And back with another banger. This time with the BIAE. Finishing up that info coming out. And I'm just sitting back and just getting the explanations, and I hope you all that's tuned in will enjoy the information as well of tonight. True peace.
All right. True peace, everyone. True peace, all kins and friends of the Ethiopian race. I am Anupunu Nupu, one of the representatives of Noon Science and also Nupu. Once again, I'm very excited and very honored to represent Noon Science as well as a great messenger known as Afro Unu Nupu. And tonight, I usually I say it's not going to be a long show, but I think it's not going to be a long show. If it's not a long show, we're going to jump into the very next question. So I have both questions lined up for us tonight. So if this one isn't that long, then we'll jump into that. Even though the paragraphs are really long, which will probably be the longest part, is just reading through the paragraphs, where the explanations are not that long because these particular paragraphs are more self-explanatory as opposed to diving deep into the ancient sources of where some information may have come from. So these are, just basic information and knowledge that Afro Unu, basically laying down the foundation for things like that. That will be more explained further in the information introduction to the nature of nature. So a lot of it will just be touching the surface on and not really going too much in depth with, but more or less just reading the information and absorbing it for what it is and what it says at that particular point in time. So like I said, if this one doesn't go too far into an hour, then we'll just jump into the very next question that we need to do. So we do have a time clock that we need to impart this vital information to the masses to make sure that we are able to wake up as many minds as we could at this particular juncture, because we are past the 60-year period in which the cataclysm was supposed to come and help to correct the negative forces. But as we can see, the negative forces are getting more and more negative as the day progresses and as time progresses. And we are in what you would call the give or take cycle. So this is more or less the give cycle, because we have to give it a couple of years, which is between 2 and 9 years. A few years. Few means between 2 and 9 years. So we have between 2 and 9 years to really get this information out, to raise the minds of those who are going to be mentally resurrected and help to pull and push the circle back up the SMAT circular order. Nature doesn't necessarily need us, because nature is going to take its course no matter what. But if we can assist nature in whatever way that we could, we will absolutely do so. And it is our duty and obligation, such as Afro Unu, Gipu, and Sipu, to make sure that this information gets out to the masses in whatever way that we can. Back then, they were writing the books by hand and handing them out in the street, but this time we have the internet, and we have Chat GPT and these particular types of resources in order to get that information out there. So I'm sorry for the long, but part that vital necessary to those that are listening and those that are seeing the information on the screen. All right, so let's get the party started. All right, so hold on, let me close out this particular screen. All right, let's share the screen. Share screen. Expand the screen. We're gonna. All right, so this time around, usually I'll break the paragraphs down into separate paragraphs, but when I was plugging the information into the bald-headed Nooney it would infer its own answers, and that's what it's trained to do. It's trained to infer its own answers as far as the information is concerned. So the technique that I used this time around was I took all of the answers that Afro Unu gave, and I plugged it all into the one question in order for it to break down each question. So you're gonna see how I addressed it in the Chat GPT in a second, but for now I have to read through the entire question and answer, and then we're gonna answer the question within Chat GPT, and also find out what answers we get from that particular excerpt, so that we can get proper information and proper understanding as far as the information is concerned. So let's go. Can you see the screen, and is it large enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right. So the next question that we're up to is what is life, and can it be eternal? Number 42. A living being gets its life from its parents. The parents of a living being is its personal creator, and nature its impersonal creator. A living being is in the image and likeness of its mother and father. The parents of a living being is its creator by the help and laws of nature. Is inherent from its parents and is spontaneous. The father and mother of a child or any living being give up part of their lives through the sex act, and this is how the child gets its life. The father supplies the blood through the sex act, and the mother supplies the bones and flesh through the gestation period by the laws of nature and its inherent and spontaneous powers. Life itself is a burning. People, the burning takes place in the lungs and blood. Person inhales oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide. Carbon is residue of burning. That is, carbon is the waste of a burnt substance or gas. When oxygen enters the lungs, it reaches the blood, and the acids in the blood ignite the oxygen and burn it. And that burning is life. The burning generates light, natural electricity, and the blood transmits the light to the brain. Then the person is able to think, see, feel, hear, taste, and smell. The burning is spontaneous by nature and the acids thereof. Number 44. When food substances seep through the lacteals of the small intestines and reach the bloodstream, the acids in the blood ignite and burn the substances. The heat and energy produced from the burning generate pressure, and the blood distributes the pressure to the various glands and nerve centers. Then the person is able to move the various parts of the physical being, and the heart is able to keep the blood flowing and distributing the energy and nourishing particles throughout the living being to maintain strength and keep the flesh replete. The burning is the imitative. The burning is the imitative to all life activities of the body, for the burning is life. Therefore, when the burning stops permanently, that is the end of life. Then the person gets cold and stiff. Open your mouth and blow your breath on the back of your hands, and you will feel heat from the burning. In order to determine whether life can continue after the death of the body, it first had to know what life is. Now that we know life is a burning, it is true that the body of a living being provides the conditions, the necessary combined factors for burning. Therefore, without this condition for burning, there can be no life. All this means that life cannot go beyond death of a physical person, because there is no condition outside the physical body that can continue the burning for a person. Hence, when the burning stops permanently, the person loses all consciousness, and that is the end of life. A person's soul is his or her body, and the head of the soul is his or her mentality, meaning the mind. The breath of life is simply oxygen, one of the gases of nature. This is the way the ancients had it. The soul is the body and the mentality of a person. When a child is born, spirits may possess his or her body, but those spirits existed ever since creation. The spirits that possess the person may be good or evil or both. This depends on the person's environment and the star or sign of the zodiac under which the individual was born. Moreover, the seed from which the child sprang is a major factor in determining his or her pattern of life. Spirits will most likely take a liking to the person with a nature most relative to theirs, unless they wish to torment a person's mind. Spirits can give false impressions or true ones. This depends on the nature of the spirits possessing the person. Therefore, in addition to proof, sound right, sound reason, instead of spirits of or spirit dreams, is the best barometer for determining what is true or false, right or wrong. To be able to make these determinations is why people by nature were given the ability to reason. 47. Spirits, like people, have laws of their own, and those laws are binding by nature. Since spirits are conscious gas forces, they can enter a person at will and leave. Entering and leaving are according to the laws and codes by which they exist. The fortune or misfortune, the fate of a person largely depends upon the spirit forces that accompany him or her and the seed from which the person sprang. Spirit law provides for the evacuation of all spirits, the time of death of a person they possess. But the spirit or spirits from the person's lifeless body are not individual soul or life, because they existed long before the birth of the person, and they cannot die if the person stops. That is, if the person stops breathing. Furthermore, a person can live without spirits, because the burning is what keeps the person alive, and light from the burning transmitted to the brain is what keeps the person conscious. 48. Spirits are not one's soul or life, but may be the factors that determine what course that person's life will take and the length of his or her life. On the contrary, spirits are not people's lives. The burning proves this. But people may be the lives of spirits, and nature the life of all visible and invisible people, because at the death of a person, spirits possessing that person must transmigrate to something or someone else in order to stay alive, for they must keep subsisting, feeding on the substance of something or someone's blood. The ancients further maintained that the eternal life of a person or of race is continuous procreation, perpetual reproduction of that person's family or kind. For example, no Ethiopian woolly-haired person is ever dead in the ethnical sense, as long as two breeding Ethiopians, male and female, are still alive and together, because all Ethiopians are of the same origin or ancestral tree. Hence, as long as two breeding Ethiopians live, all Ethiopians, living and dead, live through them. For all Ethiopians are the same flesh and blood. There is, number 50, there is no eternal life in the sense that a person has a personal soul that continues beyond the death of his or her physical body. This is evidenced by the burning, and spirits that existed long before the birth of a person and leave the body just before or at death are not interested in maintaining the individual's image, identity, personality, and memories, but their own identities and ways instead. Moreover, since spirits transmigrate from place to place and person to person, there would be too many identities, personalities, and memories for them to maintain from the various persons through the years and centuries. However, 51, however, those people who can view spirits may see one in the image of a relative, friend, or acquaintance that is still alive or deceased, because spirits can alter their form and appear in any image. This power of spirits can be very misleading to those who do not know the deceptibility of spirits. Yet, spirits have the power to activate the forces of nature. The spirits of the spirits of Christianity work hard day and night to keep the masses, particularly the black masses, deceived about the facts of life and death, to keep the captive pacified and the Caucasian in the dominant position. The spirits of Christianity constantly work hard to keep the moon cycle in progress and the Caucasian in power over other peoples. 52. In light of the foregoing answer to life and can it be eternal, we can readily see that salvation we in the West have been taught that it is. We Ethiopians in the West have been taught that salvation is everlasting bliss and happiness someplace in the sky after death. If we be good and obedient, of course, good and obedient to the hard taskmaster, undoubtedly, this nonsense was designed to pacify the oppressed in their captivity while the oppressor exploits them in every way. Salvation is protection from all kinds of enemies, including the enemies of hunger, disease, and ignorance, after a people have been liberated from them. Salvation comes after liberation. Liberation from the forces of oppression, evil, exploitation, and servitude, while that person or people oppressed are still alive. Salvation is that teaching and those forces that keep a people free and equal. 53. Liberation for a people or a kind comes collectively for all and not individually, because one is not really free until all of his kind are free. However, as stated elsewhere in this booklet, Amanubi Rakata, writer of booklets entitled Bible Interpretation and Explanations, offer a do-it-yourself solution to the problems of achieving liberty and equality for ourselves until all of us woolly-haired people can get strong enough mentally to do what we must do for our liberty and equality together. The do-it-yourself solution means every woolly-haired person who desires liberty and equality can liberate his or her mind from the grave of gullibility and the prison of ignorance by facing and accepting facts and knowledge as outlined in the Bible, in the books called the Bible Interpretations and Explanations. Once a person's mind is liberated, he or she will do things right that lead to liberation of the physical body. Once the captive's mind becomes equal to that of the captive is not a captive anymore, because he will do things equal to that of the would-be captor. 54. Liberation for a person and his kind is true independence from domination by another kind of people. The forces of exploitation, evil, and oppression destroy a people in every sense. Salvation, therefore, is protection from those wrong and cynical forces after being separated from them, independent free peoples. Peoples who are masters of their own destinies need no liberation, for they have it already. Yet salvation they constantly need, but through disobedience of the laws of nature, they can and will lose it, as is now happening to the Caucasian race. A people in oppression and captivity is in hell, and this brings us to the next question of life. But remember, eternal life for a person or race is perpetual procreation, meaning continuous reproduction on through the centuries. All right. So that was the reading of the entire part of that question, right? So you see, a lot of that wasn't really ancient knowledge or anything of that sort. It was basically Afro-Unu imparting that information as far as liberation towards us and letting us know how important liberation information is, right? So I took that entire excerpt and I plugged it into Chat GPT, right? So we're going to go through what the bald-headed Noonie Boo had to say about that particular excerpt. Okay, so as you can see, that's not like, Moses or Thutmose, where we got to go find the Para Heru and this scroll and that scroll. That was Afro-Unu talking directly to us about liberation and making sure that we get this information. So we don't need. That's why I said this class is going to be a very short one, because I think we don't need to do too much with it. And we don't need to add too much to it. All right. So I'm going to share my screen again so we can see what we, you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll make,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
All right. So I'm going to scroll down because, like I told y'all, I screenshotted it. All right. Not screenshotted it. I copied and pasted and put it in here. Okay. All right, so it says here's a structured breakdown of the passages here's a structured breakdown of what the passages say about life and eternity. The origin of life is passed from parents to child through the sex act, where the father supplies the blood and the mother provides the bones and the flesh. Parents are seen as personal creators, while nature is the impersonal creator. A child's life is spontaneous and inherent, not borrowed from elsewhere. All right, the nature of life is a burning, described as a burning process. The lung ignites the acids in the blood, producing combustion. The combustion generates heat, light, electricity. Food also fuels the burning once absorbed into the bloodstream, creating blood pressure, energy, and movement. The burning stops, the body grows cold and stiff. Then we have the breath of life, which is just simply oxygen. All right, the roles of spirits. Spirits are conscious gaseous forces that can enter and leave people. They are not life itself, but influence fate, health, and decisions. At death, spirits can evacuate the body, but cannot preserve the person's life, identity, and memories. People are the lives of spirits, because spirits need living beings to continue subsisting. That's very important to know later on in various other chapters, because spirit beings are the ones that create conditions. Okay. Eternal life, according to the ancients, eternal life does not mean an individual soul surviving death. True eternal life equals continuous procreation of a people, ensuring that the family the race/family never dies. For example, as long as two breeding Ethiopians exist, the Ethiopian people live through eternal reproduction. In this view, perpetual reproduction equals immortality of the race, not the individual. This is why our ancient ancestors, the pygmy gods, created us through the sex act, because they knew that once they procreated us sexually, that we would live on. Okay? Salvation and liberation. Salvation is not heavenly bliss after death, but freedom from oppression, hunger, and disease. And this maybe this is something we should have probably went into, because a lot of Christians think that salvation is in heaven. Once you get salvation, it's in heaven. But in noon, we're taught that salvation is the freedom from oppression, hunger, disease, and ignorance while alive. That's very important. Okay? Liberation must be collective, not just individual. A person is only truly free when their whole people are free. That's right. Eternal life of a people depends on unity, knowledge, and protection from forces of exploitation and evil. Life is defined as a spontaneous burning process within the body, fueled by oxygen and food, generating heat, light, and consciousness. When the burning ceases, life ends. There is no continuation of a personal, is that personal? Yep. Of a personal soul beyond death. Spirits may influence life, but are not life itself. Eternal life exists only in the sense of perpetual reproduction of a people or race, not impersonal immortality. Salvation is collective liberation and protection during life, not an after death paradise. So, I asked ChatGPT to break down each paragraph and give the mundane scientific or ancient parallel to what it said. So we're gonna get a little bit more information here, a little something extra to add on to the mix. All right. So here it goes. It says perfect. Let's break down paragraph by paragraph, taking each claim and matching it with either a mundane science parallel, or B, ancient cultural philosophical parallels. I'll go section by section, paragraph 42 to 54, so it's easy to follow. Parents as creators. A living being gets his life from his parents. Father supplies blood, mother supplies bones and flesh. The scientific parallel is this is genetics. DNA from sperm and egg combined to form the zygote. The father and mother each contributing half the genetic code. Blood isn't given by the father during sex, but the sperm that helps guide how blood and tissues develop. So when Aperunu says gives the blood, this is what he means. He doesn't mean literally giving blood, but the genetic information for what? For how blood and tissues develop. The mother's body supplies nutrients and structural material for bones, flesh, organ development. And that's right, because when the baby is in the womb, whatever the mother is eating and consuming is literally forming the body of that particular child. Okay? So I think that's pretty self-explanatory as far as that's concerned, right? So ancient parallels. Egyptians describe life as coming from the union of the ka, right? Male sex for male life force and the ba female essence. That's actually incorrect. I don't know where it pulled that from, but the ka is the spirit. That's male or female, and the ba is the body and the mind, as Afro Unu was saying. So the ka is the spirit, and the ba is the body and the mind. Okay. So I should have corrected it, and I didn't get a chance to correct it, but I'm correcting it right now. All right. So the ka is the spirit, and the ba is the soul, or the body and the mind. Okay. Many traditions consider the father's seed as the blood in concentrated form. So this is where Afro Unu got that quote from, right? And then the mother as a provider of the flesh. Why? Because the baby is developing in her body. She's the one that's eating the food and contributing to the child's flesh. Even when the baby is out the womb and she's breastfeeding, she's contributing to the baby's flesh and bones as well, okay? 43, life is a burning. Life itself is a burning. Oxygen ignited in the blood. Acids creates burning. This burning generates life. Scientific parallel. Cellular respiration is literally a controlled what? Burning. Oxidation of glucose with oxidation of glucose with oxygen. ATP, the energy currency of the cell, is produced in the mitochondria through oxidative phosphorylation. Heat is indeed released, and the nervous system operates via the electrochemical signals close to light and electricity. It's not close to it; it is light and electricity. Okay. The ancient parallel, the Greek pneuma equals breath, life force, and fiery spark. The Vedic tradition, the Agni, the fire god, is the inner flame of digestion and life. And Heraclitus, Greek philosopher, all life is fire in transformation. So this is not something that's just made up. This is something that has always existed. Food ignites in the blood. Food substances seep into the blood. Acids ignite them, producing producing pressure, blood pressure, energy for movement. Scientific parallel. Digestion breaks food into glucose, amino acids, fats, etc., which enter bloodstream. These fuels are metabolized or oxidized to generate energy, which maintains blood pressure, muscle contraction, and organ function. Blood pressure is hydraulic, not higher pressure, but the metaphor works. Ancient parallel. Hippocrates taught that food becomes
What you
humus
just said, you
in
start
the blood,
speaking. Yeah.
shaping health. In traditional Chinese medicine, food qi mixes with air qi to create life force. Check that out. The breath of life. Blow in your hand, feel heat. Body provides condition for burning. Without body, no burning, no life. Soul equals body plus mind. You remember that's the ba. The ba is the soul. That's the body and the mind. Okay? Scientific parallel. Scientific parallel. Exhale breath is warm because metabolism produces heat. The body's structure maintains the homeostatic environment necessary for life. Modern science agrees consciousness is tied to brain activity and ends with death. Ancient parallel, Genesis, God breathed into man the breath of life. The Egyptians, the Ankh, life tied to breath. And the Stoics, soul equals breath plus reason. Ain't that something? Breath plus reason. 46, spirits enter in the child. Spirits may possess a body after birth. Their nature depends on stars, environment, and seed. Scientific parallel, epigenetics, environment and inherited traits influence development. Psychology, personality shaped by genetics and upbringing. Ancient parallel, astrology, zodiac signs influences fate and temperament. In many African traditions, ancestral spirits inhabit newborns. Plato speaks of souls choosing bodies based on cosmic alignment. Uh-oh. Spirits as gas forces. Spirits are conscious gas forces. They can enter or leave people at will. Fate depends on spirits and seed. Scientific parallel. Gaseous forces can be loosely mapped to hormones, neurotransmitters, or even unseen influence of microbes and viruses. The fate shaped by unseen internal, external forces, genes, microbes, and environment. Ancient parallels. Stoics believe pneuma, a fiery breath, subtle substance, pervades all life. In Kemet, Egypt, the Ka, the vital force, could leave and re-enter the body. Here we go. Remember, I told y'all this is the spirit. This is the spirit. It can enter or leave the Ka, the Ba, which is the body and the mind. Okay? 48. Spirit need people. Spirits are not life. Spirits are the lives of spirit. People are the lives of spirits. Spirits must transmigrate after death to feed on new blood. Scientific parallels. Parasites, bacteria, and viruses literally survive by feeding on living hosts. Psychological memes or ideas survive only by inhabiting new minds. Ancient parallel, Hinduism, transmigration of souls, reincarnation. In Voodoo or humans as horses, needing hosts. 49. Eternal life equal perpetual reproduction. Eternal life is not personal but racial. Continuous procreation of a kind. Scientific parallel. Genetic continuity. DNA survives through generations. Evolutionary biology. Immortality of a species via reproduction. Ancient parallel. Hebrew. Be fruitful and multiply as immortality of lineage. African proverb. As long as the child of a man lives, man is not dead. Egyptian royal ideology. Pharaoh lives forever through dynastic succession. 50. No personal eternal soul. No eternal life as a personal soul. Spirits don't preserve identity, memory, or personality. Scientific parallel, neuroscience, memory and personality of our brain dependent and perish with death. Nothing survives of you beyond physical structures. Ancient parallel, early Hebrew view of Sheol, no conscious afterlife. This one is called Epicureanism. The soul atoms disperse at death. No personal immortality. Spirits deceptively appear as dead.
As the dead.
As the dead. Yeah, correct.
Mhm.
Spirits may appear in familiar images to mislead people. Scientific parallel. Is called a pareidolia. Mind projects familiar faces. Uh-oh. This is going on in your mind. Dreams, hallucinations, and sleep paralysis create experiences of seeing the dead. All right. Ancient parallel. Greek idola. Shadowy forms of the dead in Hades. Yoruba. Spirits can shape shift to appear as known ancestors. But this is in the scientific form, this is called pareidolia. This is what the spirits do in your mind. They create these conditions. Okay? It's not a shape shifting going on. It's what's going on in your mind. And Afro Unu actually lets us know that later on in the introduction to the nature of nature, when he lets you know that the projection is actually in the back of your mind being played out on the outside. Okay? 52, salvation redefined. Salvation is not bliss after death, but protection from hunger, disease, ignorance, freedom in life. See, the Caucasian Bible had to tell you that salvation is after death. It is not after death. It is why you are existing right now. So that's why people are accepting of the conditions that we face today because of this Bible. You see how dangerous this Bible is? Though it has a lot of information and some knowledge in it, it is very detrimental to the life of an Ethiopian. All right, scientific parallel, public health, education, social freedom equals real world salvation. Maslow's hierarchy, survival needs met equals liberation. Ancient parallel, Egyptian Ma'at, truth order, ensured well-being in life, not just death. Stoic salvation, freedom through virtue and reason. 53 and 54. Liberation is collective. Liberation is collective, not individual. True independence is freedom from domination. Scientific parallel. In social psychology, collective empowerment raises individual well-being. Liberation theology. Freedom requires systemic, not just personal change. Check that out. Ancient parallel, Exodus story. Salvation was for all Israelites, not just Moses. Uh-oh. African cosmologies, community as opposed to individual survival. In summary, the text equates life with fire burning, scientifically the metabolism, right? That's what the burning is metabolism. The soul is the body and mind, no immortality of an individual, scientifically brain-dependent consciousness. Soul, body, and mind is the ba. Keep that in mind. And spirits are the ka. All right. Spirits are external influences, scientifically, micro, psychology, memes, anciently, Numa, Ka, ancestors. Eternal life equals lineage continuation, not individual survival. Scientifically, that's the DNA, evolution, anciently, dynastic, and immortality. Salvation equals liberation in life, not afterlife paradise. Freedom from oppression, anciently, ma'at, virtue and order. And then they asked if I wanted to put it in a chart. So I said, yeah, but it's basically giving the same information all over again, broken down into a chart. All right. So that is the presentation as far as that is concerned. Hold on, did I get cut off or are you guys still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. No, 'cause I saw Nebu's thing got cut off. Okay. All right. Yeah, so that's the presentation. Like I said, I don't think it would have went that long. You know, we did about 40 minutes, and that was about 30 minutes running time as well, and we could jump into the next one, but let me know what y'all thought about that particular presentation.
We can't hear you, Nebu.
Okay. Basically, oh,
There you go.
got it. Okay. Back in April, to the part where it was speaking of how liberation is a collective, and if people is not free individually, but as a collective, and so forth. So, as far as the freedom, if one not free, all others are not free. Okay, well, back in April, Trump passed the executive order called the Restoring Equality of Opportunity and Meritocracy. And the bill basically targets women's financial freedom. So basically, it goes into how when the women back in the 1950s, they couldn't, they had, in order for them to get loans, they would have to get what you call a co-signer from a male in order for them to get, and this is like past history when they was trying to keep women from being, financial, without but all of that comes part of them trying to bring in the act where the women wanted to be equal and wanted to be equal to men and all of that. So I say that to say that basically with this, it's like everything, the so-called freedoms that they claim that we have is just an illusion. So once people basically see that we're living in a bubble of illusion, which is projected for us to think that is reality, we'll never get out, never get out of the spell of Leviathan.
Facts. That was a great breakdown. That was actually factual.
I'm just tripping. All right, so what I was thinking about was the part about the male and the female and how it says the male provides the blood or the DNA and all that, and the female she provides the skin and the bones, right?
Right.
And so when I was looking at that, I said, well, this is a contradiction to scientifically, this right here is a contradiction to this.
Oh, in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. So when you go to Genesis 2:23, it says, the man said, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." This is scientifically impossible because that would mean the female provides the bone and the flesh.
Right.
So how can a woman come from a man in the sense that religion is bringing it forth? And so what I did was just to make sure it was saying what it was saying. I go up and hit the Hebrew and come down to that verse because it's saying, "Said Adam, this is now bone of my bone." So what you do, you go to here to the Hebrew, it's sin, right? And you see it, and it had bone of my bones, the flesh of my flesh. So you go over to Strong's Hebrew 6106 and click on it, and it comes up with the it symbol. And it tells right here, King James means body, bone, life, self, same strength, bones, bone, same, very same body, bone of my bone. So it's talking about the structure. And we know that scientifically tell you that there's no way that the female could have came from man in the form of bones and flesh. Because they teach that man was made and a female came from a rib, which is not accurate. Because we know that the only way this happened was the way that the earth produced male and female at the same time, and then our ancestors eventually had sex, and from that they passed on a lesser form of immortality through the sex act. And that came with the DNA, and the female provided the flesh and the bone. So if anything, this biblical context would have to be the woman would say that, just because if it had to be the woman can say bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh if she gave birth to a male or a female. But for the male aspect, it's scientifically impossible. That's what I was thinking about when you was going through with the bar and the car and stuff like that. Because they even say that the Lord breathed into the man's nostril, he became a living soul. And we know that the soul is ether. And you can't breathe or blow that into a nose because the body is created in the womb, not outside the body. And how can a spirit, which they say is God, blow into the nostrils and then you become a living soul when the soul can't have a place to exist until the conditions of the body is first provided, which Afro stated that the conditions of the way the body is designed, organs and veins and heart and all that stuff have to be provided for the soul to exist. And once that burning is gone, then the soul can't exist in the body like that. But that's all I wanted to say. I think that was the chat did a great job with adding in the mundane stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's that would be part one. So I don't know if you want to end this particular live and then we come right back and do the next question, since this one wasn't that long. I mean, it was about 50 minutes, which is cool. 49 minutes and counting. So if y'all want to come back and do another one, or if you got a show lined up,
No, I'm good. I couldn't. I still got to develop that. I'm still working on that one. But if you want to come right back,
so listen to the next show.
All right, everybody, hold on. We'll be right back. True peace.